Hello, and welcome back to the Earn Your Badge from Home program. So, today you guys are going to build a really fun game in Scratch, but you're also going to learn how you can pair your new skills to make a game that can educate whoever's playing it. So, obviously, as a Girl Scout, a big part of your role is community service. And obviously, right now, there's not a lot we can actually go out into the world and do. But a really fun way to serve your community is you can make a game to teach people about any sort of cause that you may be passionate about. So in my game, I'm helping the user learn about how to keep your environment safe and protected while also playing a really fun clicker game. So you guys are going to learn how to do that, but you don't necessarily have to talk about the environment in your game. If fire safety is important to you, if helping the homeless is important to you, if teaching people just about science or math or any of that is something you would like to do, totally feel free to go ahead and do that. You don't necessarily have to choose the environment, but just think about how you can start teaching somebody about any sort of subject you're passionate about through a really fun game. So it's going to obviously make people a lot more excited to learn about whatever you're trying to say as well. So first, let's just see what our project is and how it works. So when I hit my green flag, my dinosaur here is going to start randomly bouncing all around the screen. And this project is very similar to Whack-A-Mole in the sense that we are trying to click our dinosaur before it moves somewhere else. When we click our dinosaur, a few things are going to happen. A pop sound will play, our score will increase by 1, and our dinosaur will say a message. So I'm going to hit my green flag. So already off the bat, we can see that our dinosaur is bouncing everywhere as well as it's changing colors, which is fun. And I'm going to click on my dinosaur. Now remember, a big part of this project, we're trying to teach whoever's playing it something new. And so since mine is about the environment, every time I click on my dinosaur, it's going to tell the user a new message about ways that we can keep our Earth clean and safe. So it's going to say 4 different messages, and after I reach 4 points for my score, my game is going to end. Let's click on it again and see what our new message is. Obviously, you heard the pop the first time I clicked it. There's pop again, just another letter. And just another fun surprise, our dinosaur says its message and then it does a full spin and then it bounces around for a few more seconds and then everything stops. And then to reset our game, all we have to do is hit our green flag again. Notice how my score goes back to 0. And when I click on my dinosaur, it says that same first message again. So let's see how we can actually build this now. So this is what your screen probably looks like right now. To open up a new project, I'm going to go up to this top blue bar here and click on Create. And then we're going to open up our project editor. Okay, so obviously in my game, you didn't see a sprite cat, so we're not going to need that. So I'm just going to hit this trash can here. And then to load in a new sprite, I am going to go to this blue circle here at the bottom right corner of my screen, and I'm going to say choose a sprite. And you'll get a whole library full of options. You don't necessarily have to pick the dinosaur if you don't want to. You got a ton of options. And this is your game, so feel free to make it any sprite you would like. I'm going to use the dinosaur because that's what I liked. There it is. So there's my sprite. And then we also need our backdrop. So I'm just going to go to this other blue circle here. Remember, when you hover over it, you get all these options. This one says choose a backdrop. It's what's going to take me to the library. So I'm going to click here. Now I have my whole backdrop library. I'm going to scroll until I find that nature scene. Here it is. Again, feel free to pick another backdrop if you would like to. And obviously, before I even add any code, I'm just going to try to get my dinosaur to kind of look the way I wanted it to. Obviously, the smaller your dinosaur, the harder your game is going to be because it leaves more room or more empty space on the screen and makes it harder to click. So I'm going to change the size. I'm going to go over to the size bubble, kind of towards the bottom of my screen. I'm going to click inside of this bubble. And this is where obviously you can change the size of your sprite. So I'm going to go inside and I'm going to say, let's try 50. That's probably better. Yeah, 50 looks good. Cool. So let's actually get this thing moving. So just like we saw when I was demonstrating the completed project, our game starts when we hit the green flag. So I'm going to go over to events, this yellow circle here, and I'm going to click and drag this when green flag clicked block. I'm going to zoom in so y'all can see a little better. Okay. So this when green flag clicked block is my event. This is the situation that your computer is checking for. It's in order to know to run whatever code we've placed underneath. Without this event here, computer's not going to run anything. I mean, we can pick any sort of event block, but we need something at the top. All right, so how do I get it to go to a bunch of random spots on the screen? Okay, well, that has to do with my sprite's motion. So I'm going to click on my motion circle. And what I'm going to do is I am going to drag the go to random position block. So again, it does exactly what it sounds like. It tells our sprite to go to a random position. So when I click on the green flag, it goes to a new spot. I click again, and again, and it goes to a bunch of new locations. Well, obviously, I don't want to have to keep hitting the green flag over and over again for my character to know that it needs to go to a bunch of different positions. I just want to be able to click on my green flag once and for my dinosaur itself to know that it needs to move to a bunch of different spots. So it essentially needs to just continue repeating this block over and over and over again. So if I want this same command to repeat multiple times, what I can do is instead of dragging 1,000 go-to random positions and placing them underneath each other, what I can instead do is save myself a lot of time and make my game work a lot better by clicking on Control, and I am going to grab this forever loop. So this forever loop will make any block that's placed underneath that command will run over and over and over again. And you can place multiple blocks inside and have a set of commands run over and over again, which is what we're going to do in a sec. So, okay, looks about right. Let's test it out and see if there's anything we need to fix. Okay, well, it's moving to a bunch of random positions, and I'm only clicking on my green flag once, but it's going way too fast. So we need to say, okay, it needs to slow down. It's going to too many positions and in a very short amount of time. So because my computer's reading these blocks super quickly, I'm going to say, okay, take a little bit of a pause every time you say for your sprite to go to a new position. So maybe it needs to take like a 1-second break. Okay, well, to do that, all we have to do is grab our wait 1 second block. This wait 1 second block is going to tell our computer to read the go to position block, take a 1 second break before it tells it to go to a new position. So when I hit my green flag now, it is much slower. If you feel like this is a little too slow, you can always change this to say like 0.5. 0.5 is less than 1, which means it's taking a smaller break. And if it's a smaller break, that means your character will move faster. So see how it's moving a little faster? I'm going to keep it at 1 for now, but you can always change it. Okay, so it's moving okay. It looks good. Now, let's get our sound going every time we can click on our dinosaur. So to do that, okay, if you go back to events, there's already an event that says when this sprite clicked. So I'm going to grab this one. This is going to give our computer a notification that it needs to be checking for if my dinosaur gets clicked, because it knows there's going to be some sort of command it needs to run underneath. So another event. This time we need a sound to play. So I'm going to go over to sounds, and I am going to get the start sound pop block. So again, it's exactly what it looks like. Every time we click on our dinosaur, it's going to run the command to play a sound, and that sound is going to sound like pop. So now let me click on my dinosaur. Let me make it a little louder. There it is. Cool. So how do we get that score going? We're supposed to get our score to go up every time our dinosaur gets clicked on. To do that, I'm going to go over to variables. Now, you may or may not be familiar with what a variable is. All the word variable means is it's a way for us to store a piece of information. So in this case, what we're storing is how many points the player has. So I'm going to store that inside of a variable, and I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to name it score. It's the same thing as if you were to have a box, and on the, like say you're moving, on the box you give it some sort of title. Maybe you title it toys, right? And that box can hold 6 or 7 toys. Same concept, just in a computer. So I'm going to click on this make a variable box, and inside I am going to type in score. And I'm going to hit OK. Remember, just to review, I clicked on the make a variable box. So now I have score here as an oval, and I also have my score displaying here. So it's going to show us whatever value score is holding, however many points it's holding, it's going to show up here. Right now we have 0 points. And we can use this oval. This oval is also, it's the same thing. It's storing whatever value it is, and we can use that to our advantage later. So all this oval is the representation. It's representing however many points that score is holding. So every time we click on our dinosaur, we want our score to go up by 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this change my variable block. My variable is not the score my variable is not the variable we are using. Score is what we are using. So I'm going to click inside right over top, and I'm going to select score. So I just clicked over top to get that drop down menu. I'm going to select score, and I'm going to take this block and drag it underneath start sound pop. So now it's going to say, okay, I'm going to add 1 to whatever value score is already holding. When you click on it now, our score is going to go up. Okay, well, let me hit the stop sign real quick. When I hit the green flag again, see how my score is still 5? Well, we said every time the user hits a green flag, that's the beginning of the game. And at the beginning of the game, you want to start clean. You want to start with 0 points. So to do that, I'm going to grab this set block. And inside, I'm going to click again, change it to score. And we are going to say set score to 0 every time that the user hits the green flag. Every time they start, reset your score back to this number so that they can start with a clean slate. So let's hit our green flag now. And now it's back to 0. And I can still click on my dinosaur to change it and let it increase. But every time I hit my green flag, it goes right back down to 0. It's super, super important. Your set score block is above your forever loop. It is not inside of it. If you put it inside, it's going to, every time this forever loop runs over and over again, it's going to reset your score to 0, and you're never really going to get the chance to increase it. You only want your score to be 0 as soon as the green flag is clicked, because that's the place that you're resetting. Okay, so let's get our dinosaur actually saying some messages now. So to do that, well, obviously every time we clicked on it, we wanted it to say a different message. So let's do this. When the user has 1 point, we'll give our dinosaur a unique message to say. When the user has 2 points, we'll give our dinosaur another message. And then when the user has 3 points, the dinosaur will say another unique message, and so forth. So if we are checking for however many points that the user has, we have to have a way of checking that, right? How does our computer know when the score is 1, and then when it is 1 to do something as a result of it, right? Well, that's why we go into control, and we grab this if then. It looks like a loop, but it does something very different. This is called an if statement. This is what your computer is using to check for certain situations while your game is running. So this is how we are going to place something inside of the shaded hexagon, telling it to sense if score is 1, 2, 3, or 4. And if it is, then inside we are going to give it some sort of message to say. So first, let's get a checking if score is equal to 1. I'm actually gonna leave this detached for now. We will attach it in a second, but not quite, okay? So I am going to go to operators, and I am going to grab this green hexagon with the equals in the middle. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back to variables, and I can click and drag that score oval. So now we have a way of we're retrieving however much score is equal to in that moment. Obviously, we don't want to check if score has 50 points. We want to check right now if it has 1. So I'm going to click inside of that white oval, and I'm going to say 1. Okay, so now score is checking if it is holding 1 point. So let's drag that inside of our if then. And the way you can drag it in is you want to lead in from the right side until your hexagon is highlighted in white. And once it is, you can let go and everything expands to fit inside properly. So move in from the right. It's not going to work if you try to move in from the left like this. So move in from the right and let go so it fits inside. So now, okay, we are checking when score is equal to 1. Let's make our dinosaur say a message because of that. So let's click on looks. And I am going to grab this say block. This is what's going to make it look like our dinosaur is saying something, right? So inside, you can type whatever you would like to. If you want to talk about, again, like fire safety or something else, obviously go ahead. I am going to continue talking about the environment. So I am going to type inside, remember to recycle. So now we've got something check-in, but it's still not attached to an event, and it's not attached to anything. Computer's not going to run it. So what we are going to do is let's place our if statement underneath our change score by 1. So every time our sprite gets clicked, our code will check also if score is equal to 1, and if it is, it will run the message. So now all we have to do is see if score is equal to 2 and then say a different message. So what we are going to do is grab another if statement. So now let's get another if statement. And from here, for the next 3 points that we're going to be checking for, it's going to look very similar. So again, let's go to operators, click and drag this, and then go to variables. Remember, this oval is representing however many points that score holds. Drag it inside. Remember, wait until it highlights in white and drag it inside. Click inside. And this time, we're not checking for 1. We're checking if score has 2 points. And now, because score has 2 points, we are going to tell our dinosaur to say a different message. So go back to looks, grab that say block, and let's type in, I'm going to say never litter. Now, same process for checking if score equals 3. Going into operators, changing it to 3 variables, clicking and dragging that score oval inside of my operator. Control to grab our if statement, our computer's way of checking if the situation is true, and then letting it go inside. And then you can just slowly attach all of these if statements underneath each other. You do not want an if statement inside. See how this if statement is now inside of if score equals 2? I want it underneath. So it should be one after another. So be super careful of that, because that's a mistake that a lot of people make. And then one last say block. And let's type in this time use a reusable water bottle rather than a plastic one. Okay. And now let's check if score is equal to 4, but the code we put inside is going to look a little different because score is obviously the last point that we're checking for. And so our dinosaur is going to spin in a circle, say its message, and then everything will stop. So real quick, let's just check if score equals 4. Same way we've been doing it so far. Go into variables, click and drag score inside. And now let's first get our dinosaur to spin in a full circle. So if you look inside of motion, there's this block here that says turn 15 degrees. We are going to use that to our advantage. Well, obviously 15 degrees is not a lot. It's only going to turn by a little bit. If I click on this oval, right, on this block, see how my dinosaur is turning? Well, it's only inching a little bit by a little bit. And I wanted to go through all the way until it's back to facing upright. So obviously, since I was clicking on this block over and over again, it means the same thing as me running that command multiple times. But the difference is we don't want this inside of a forever loop because we only want our dinosaur to do one full spin. We don't want it to be spinning forever. So I'm going to go to control and see if there's a loop that can tell my block inside to repeat for a certain amount of times, but not forever. And that is exactly what this repeat loop does. So I'm going to place it inside of my if statement. And then we are going to place 15 inside of the repeat loop. And inside, we are going to change it to 24 because that is how many 15-degree turns it will take for our dinosaur to go all the way around. Now, what this 15 degrees is the amount that your sprite is turning by. If you increase this number, every time it turns, it'll take a wider turn. So it'll spin by more. Let's keep it at 15. So it's still like inching, but it still goes all the way through. Feel free to experiment for a second and see what happens when you make this number larger if you'd like to. But I'd recommend once you're done experimenting to change it back to 15. Cool. So let's hit our green flag. See how things are moving so far. So it's clicking good. It's moving all over the place, saying different things. And then click on it. And it does a full spin. Very cool. The next bit is it does a spin. It needs to say a new message. So I'm going to go to looks. And I am going to actually grab this say hello for 2 seconds block rather than the say block. And I'm going to place it underneath the repeat loop, still inside of the if statement, not inside of the repeat. And inside, I'm going to say, let's take care of our Earth. And I'm going to change it from 2 seconds to 5 seconds. Now, the difference between this say block that doesn't have anything after it and this say block that says for 5 seconds is this say will continue running until it's told not to. This say block will only run this command. Our dinosaur will only say, let's take care of our Earth for 5 seconds. And then the speech bubble will go away, which is what we want in this case. If I use this say block, the speech bubble wouldn't go away.
So at this point, your clicker game is all complete. Double check to hit save now in that top right-hand corner. And if there is no save now message appearing, it means that your game is automatically saved. So congratulations on earning your 3rd Coding for Good badge.